Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm Mary Catherine Ham, your host. I'm here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour. We have a lot going on in the world. A major change in U.S. policy toward Israel is what it looks like, and we will get into that. Some more news from campus unrest, including some literal shaking. We have a little bit of talk from the Tom Brady Roast, and RFK and Cuomo updates, if you guys are into those guys, and I know you are. And finally, some cheese balls, because why wouldn't we end with that? Before we get to all of that, how's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Catherine. Doing just fine. I wanted to let you know last week I took the kids. Kate was out. So I took the kids to a new place in Arlington called Ocean Shack.
Nice.
Okay, and it's... my son was interested because they had hush puppies on the menu, and he's suddenly a big fan of hush puppies.
I mean,
he
hush
discovered
puppies
them
are
in
fantastic.
Charleston, like, this is so great. And
Oh,
I'm like,
had he never had them before that?
apparently not.
Oh, funny. That's such a thing from like the crib to the grave in the South.
Yes,
It would never occur to me that someone had not tried a hush puppy.
You don't see it as often, in these neck of the woods,
Right.
if you will, in these parts. So we went there, but it turns out the theme of the place is called Low Country Boil. Right, so it is.
I like
and
it.
They literally
I'm writing this down.
They come in these bags, these plastic bags, and you open it up, and then you can put it on a tray, and you get shrimp and clam, the whole thing. Okay, fine. Everything was fine. What intrigued me was on the menu, and it was packed. What intrigued me on the menu was they had the words that jumped out at me: "All you can eat option."
Oh, I mean, obviously that would jump out at you.
For $60. That's the key. Okay, so this is not like $25, $30.
Yeah, this is
It's not even $50,
it's a
which
chunk
is a
of
big.
change,
It's
yeah.
a serious chunk of change. And I thought, can I do it? And who else can do it? So I knew, obviously, right then and there, they have rules, and one of the rules is the whole table must be all in on the all you can eat.
Oh, okay. So it's
I
60
can't do it
ahead,
alone.
and you. Oh well.
And I said, well, there's no way we're doing it now. Not with my daughter, obviously. You're not going to get your money's worth. Maybe my son, if
Come on, girl, pull your weight.
if he's less picky, if he's hungry enough. Certainly not Kate. I mean, she was raised in I don't want to say abstemious, but reasonable might be the word.
Yeah,
where like one
reasonable
serving
home,
is
right.
enough. One serving is never enough. Hey, I'd be at their house. I'm going up for seconds. Like, what's happening here? Why am I the only one going up? Her parents, that would be a waste of money as well. You wouldn't want to do that.
You need me. You need me.
Mary Catherine, I think.
A woman who lifts weights who was raised with two brothers. That's what you need in that moment.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
No, and I thought about my Jersey buddies, Todd Palladino, Steve Eustaris. We sort of mastered the Chinese buffet.
Yep.
Yep. And Filipinos in general are very good about the buffet. Like
I can imagine. Right? It's like you
they
gotta
know
take
what
advantage.
to
You
get.
gotta
They know
take
what
advantage
to
of
how to
this situation.
maximize and get the most bang for your buck. The answer is always.
I'm gonna get canceled for that.
I know. I
Sorry,
said you're allowed
Filipinos,
to. No, it's true. But the answer, by
after
the
a
way,
long nursing shift, you gotta.
Yeah. You're hungry.
Stereotypes.
Yeah. And the answer, by the way, is shrimp.
Okay.
That's where you get the most money. You got to go for the shrimp. My father still does that.
Wise.
Gets the shrimp. Other people are not so good. And a friend of mine, Sue Maroney, who I've mentioned on the show once, we were up at a brunch in Boston. And it was, so it was great, all-you-can-eat buffet. And I saw on her plate a bagel.
Girl. Come on now.
They want you to get the bagel. That's a trap. If you go to like Fogo de Chão, the Brazilian meat place, it costs a lot, but it is unlimited meat.
Mm-hmm.
Steaks, pork, sausages.
It's a great setup. You have a little medallion that you turn over on your table, whether you're green or red, like whether you're still going or you're taking a break.
I'm always green.
I can imagine.
And what they do, though, is they have this amazing salad bar.
They do. It's really beautiful.
You know this. You know what I'm talking about. And the bread is actually good.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Because, how can you risk bread and all the stuff in this? That's their plan. So you cannot do that. Mary Catherine, are you? Oh, the other thing is this. A lot of those places, I believe, slower service. Like,
I could see that.
They're hungry. We'll get to them in another 15 minutes, and maybe they'll be less hungry. Are you, in your family, were you buffet people?
Were we buffet people? I would not say we were buffet people.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do have like several core memories of being at buffets as a child, so we must have indulged.
Yeah.
One in particular where one of my earliest memories with my father, which, excuse me, everybody, I got sick at a buffet when I was about 3 years old, and he had to rush me out of the Piccadilly cafeteria. No. I remember it because I ruined his yellow Izod shirt. I remember the polo.
Oh, so you got sick.
Mm-hmm. And he was like shielding other customers from the situation, rushing me outside. So that'll ruin buffets for you. Yeah. Maybe that changed my family's mind. Look, the Ham kids, particularly me, we were pukey kids. Yeah. Like it was just that was our thing.
Do you think
right?
this was sick or upset stomach? Had too much to eat at the buffet?
No.
That could happen.
It was. I don't think it was that. It was just that just like with my pregnancies, like whatever can make you, it's gonna make me. So it was just a fact of life. We were a real boot and rally family. You do what you need to do, and then you come back.
Well, I mean, like if I were doing a buffet, I'd just take a very long bathroom break, and then I'm hungry again. I mean, I've been here all. Sorry, anyway, Jennifer. She's mortified.
Now that I've ruined everyone's appetites, I will say yes. The Fogo de Chao salad bar is very tempting and problematic, and you want to just fill up on that, and you can't do it. Now, Steve would be...
How is he? He'd be great.
He's immune to that temptation, right? He doesn't eat food that his food eats, as he says. So he's not
interested... He doesn't eat what?
He doesn't eat food his food eats. So he's not interested in that. I saw a reel from Nick Freitas, who, if you don't follow him, you should, about him and his wife. They went to Fogo de Chao, and she went to the salad bar, and he's like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
It's a trap." Yeah, it's a...
So I would definitely start not on the salad bar, even though I wanted to start on the salad bar.
Yes.
Although I will say it's good for your blood sugar if you start with something a little bit of fiber.
I still think about that, Mary Catherine, even now. Your advice is still...
It's true. Eat a few cucumbers.
I think about that. You want to go right for the meat, but my general advice for anybody, Mike, also another person ideal for a buffet, my nephew Robbie. He'd be, he's what, 17? They can't get enough. Plays hockey. He's going to eat a lot.
No, Steve's a good guy for this. Like I'm not going to pull my weight the way Steve would, but I would say for a lady, I'd do a pretty good job, depending on what I've done that day.
The last big buffet I did, I believe, was in Las Vegas with Sonny Bunch.
Oh, nice.
And that was at Caesars, and we were just like, let's walk around. There are multiple stations, and my general advice for any buffet is don't just pick up a plate and get in line. Right. Look around, see what there is.
Oh, you got to scout it out.
Yeah. And if there's no line at like the omelet bar, get to the omelet bar.
When I was a kid, for one of my good friends' birthdays every year, it was a tradition that we would go to Golden Corral.
Oh.
And Golden Corral.
I've never been.
Oh, I still love it.
I mean,
I don't know if I still love it. In my brain, it's amazing.
I don't do an outing for a special getting hammered.
If it would measure up. But at the time, when I was like 8 to 12 years old, we got dressed up to go to Golden Corral for her birthday. But that was the thing. We'd get dressed up. We'd go to Golden Corral. You order your ribeye or whatever it is off the grill top in the back. But more importantly, the buffet. Right? Now they're trying to trick you at Golden Corral, too, because they got a bunch of cheap pizza and gummy bears up there, right?
For the kids, yeah.
And for children, we're all in on the cheap pizza and gummy bears and swirly soft serve, right?
Right.
But, we could eat a bunch, so I ate a bunch.
At Golden Corral, is the steak a separate thing from the buffet?
Yes, you have to order off the menu for the steak.
Okay.
And then the buffet includes all forms of cuisine. I mean, there's an Italian spot. There's a Greek spot. I would just get
I've only seen the commercials, which make my mouth water. But isn't it fried shrimp, fried chicken, or wings? I think they do.
Yeah, you
stuff
can
like
get all
that.
that stuff up there.
I would get that.
It's a bonanza.
Yeah.
Anyway, happy birthday to Emily, whose birthday was last week, but we did not go to Golden Corral.
Happy birthday, Mary Catherine. How are you?
I am good. I just wanted to update everybody because I looked it up. It's in my head from my childhood. Hush. Do you know where Hush Puppy comes from?
No.
So the legend has it, which is why I looked it up, because I thought, well, maybe that's not true. But I always heard that it was because you take the fried bits from whatever food you're making in the South and you toss them to the puppy, which makes the puppy hush.
Hush. I'd like
puppy.
to believe that.
I looked it up. The first recorded use of the word hush puppy dates to 1899. And by 1927, routinely in Georgia, they were using hush puppy for that piece of food, and it seems like it is related to that. So,
and it's like,
I'm glad to hear that legend is correct.
It's
maybe.
like fried bits. It's like fried. Yeah. It's like corn. Is it? It's corn.
It's corn just breaded and fried.
Yeah, because sometimes you'll get actual pieces of corn.
Yes.
In the hush puppy.
It's just
deep fried goodness.
The good part of fried stuff, it's just
bread.
Only that.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and you can all sorts of options for the corn.
Yes.
For the...
Anyway, so hush puppies.
Right.
Georgia. That makes sense why I would have heard that and eaten hush puppies my entire life.
I've kind of sworn hush puppies was the name of a children's shoe.
It is also that.
Buster Brown or something.
Yeah, I think
really?
it's also that. Yeah.
Okay, so my memory is still intact.
I think you're correct.
What else is going on?
Righty.
Doing fine.
We are having Steve's parents for the weekend. We're really excited to welcome the grandparents to town.
Oh, I bet the kids love it.
The kids are very excited. Yeah. And most importantly, am I going to pretend that I created this situation? Yes, I am, because it's Mother's Day weekend, right? We've done a little bit of training on it, but the babies this morning, the grandparents' names on this side of the family are Sassy and Pops. And Sassy would love for the babies to say her name, right?
Oh,
so this morning I said, "Hey," to the toddler, "Can you say Sassy?" And she goes, "Sassy."
Oh.
I was like, yes. To the little baby,
yes,
who is just over 1, I said, "Can you say Sassy?" And he goes, "Sassy."
That's it. That's all you need.
And what's going to happen is when I want to present this to Sassy as basically the greatest Mother's Day gift I can muster.
That is a great
We'll get her other things too, but this is a good one. This is solid. They're both going to clam up, certainly, right? Neither one of them is going to say it.
I don't know.
That's not true. The baby is very helpful in this way. Like, he will repeat what you say. He wants to be there for you. The toddler does not want to be there for you.
Well, I mean,
he's not interested in your timing.
The key is also having them identify the word with the person, the object, and saying that. So I think they'll.
I think we're gonna. We'll get
it. I'm sure you'll have a lovely time
at some point during the weekend. We'll get it. By the way, it is Mother's Day coming up, so if you guys are
Happy Mother's Day to you all.
Looking for ideas, I don't have any. So make your children say words. I don't know. That's my thought. What are you guys doing? You have a plan? Not that we should spoil it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
Because I'm sure it's well planned already.
This actually is, sometimes it's not. This one, we are going out for a Mother's Day brunch, but out in the country.
Ooh, nice.
The countryside, about an hour away or so. And I can't reveal more than that because I know Kate will be listening to this in the morning. But
I'm excited.
I think she'll enjoy it.
Okay.
I know I will, because it's really about what can I eat.
I mean, obviously, it's
the first thing I do is I look at the menu. Maybe there's something there for her, I don't know, and the kids, but definitely for me.
Okay, good. Well, we've got that covered.
Yeah, there's a lot of chicken
So they're going
liver.
to Fogo de Chao in Purcellville. And
the Golden Corral, actually. My dream come true.
Actually, I should look that up. Maybe we could go for Mother's Day. We don't have any big plans, but I gotta say, Steve has it hard because it's Valentine's Day in February. Our anniversary is in March. My birthday is in April, and then Mother's Day is in May.
That's a lot of
and
service.
I'm kind of like, and I'm not saying this like as a trap. I truly don't need anything for Mother's Day.
It's a total trap.
A nod.
That is such a trap.
A nod or a handmade card is fine.
No.
I'm just
no
because
way.
I've had
no way.
Because Steve is very good at gifts. Mm-hmm. I have already had an extremely good gift for my anniversary and my birthday. We don't need to do it again.
I guarantee you he will.
Oh, I'm sure he'll get something.
There is no way. If he, I think
you shouldn't be empty-handed, but they're it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, my mother offhandedly saying, "Oh, I don't need anything. I don't want anything." And somehow my dad was like, "Oh, he told her he heard it too," and he was like, "I guess not then." And come that day, boy, was she annoyed.
You can't do absolutely.
Yeah,
nothing.
I know, that's the thing.
I'm just saying, handmade cards, fine by me.
Right.
Maybe a cupcake or something. I don't really like cupcakes, but it's the thought that
counts.
So anyway, we will do a Mother's. Oh, one more thing from this weekend. One of my kids is going on their first ever sleepover.
Oh yeah.
A little birthday party.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm not worried about my kids' ability to get through a sleepover. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes kids would call home early.
Oh, I know, it's kind of embarrassing.
Get someone to pick them up. I'm not worried about that part. sleepovers are a bit more controversial than they were when we were kids.
In what sense?
A lot of parents don't let their kids do them at all.
Really?
And yeah, that's a new thing. And it comes from just wariness about who's in the household. How well do I know this family?
How well do you know? I know
Right,
Kate's
right.
the same way, and she
Yeah.
wants to know about who the family is, obviously, siblings, or, are there random people there,
No, you'd want to have a lay of the land. Now, all the sleepovers I did as a kid were with families that we knew extremely well. I mean, they
Okay.
were neighborhood
Yeah.
families, and
Yeah.
we were over there all the time.
Right.
To this point, my kids have basically just done sleepovers with cousins
Yeah.
and with a very good friend of mine who lives in town who has kids about
Okay.
my kids'
Uh-huh.
age, and they do sleepovers with them, but they're basically like cousins.
Okay.
So that's all we've done thus far. So she's very excited.
She is excited.
Yes.
She understands what's going on.
Oh, yeah. She's
Okay.
very
Good.
pumped.
And well, I was going to say, how much, background check do you do, but
I know the mom.
and there's other girls there.
I know the
It'll be
mom and
fine.
the dad. It's a little group of
Good.
girls. They're very
It'll be
excited
fine.
to have
It'll
this
be fine.
adventure.
She'll have a wonderful time. And I mean, when I grew up, I was very strict about going to sleepovers at friends. It was one requirement. Do you have the Playboy channel? Channel 31 on the box.
It's weird that people are wary about sleepovers these days.
And now, I asked the parents, do you have the... No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
You know what? My friend...
That I don't send my kids.
My friend Emily of Golden Corral birthday fame, her family always had little Debbie rolls. Swiss rolls.
All right.
And that was
the little
really...
indulgences is a thing.
Woo!
Little indulgences.
My family did not get those. Also, famously, her mother would always ask us every year on the Golden Corral trip in the minivan on the way there or back what we wanted to be when we grew up. Famously, she would just make up stuff from the year before. So she would say, now, she's her mother's Mexican. Now, Maria Catalina, you said... you wanted to be a ballerina. And I'd be like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not correct. And she would insist. Each of us had said something the year before that was completely off base. Never in my life have I wanted to be a ballerina. And we would insist every year that we had not said those things. And she would, nope.
Over and over.
I know. Maria Catalina. I know.
It's a lovely way to say your name, isn't it?
So anyway, again, happy birthday, Emily. Hope Golden Corral was great. Oh no!
Oh no!
I spilled my water.
That's just water, folks. Okay, we're good.
Don't put that on the YouTube. Should we talk about the news?
Let's do it.
It was nice to lighten it up at the beginning, but we got to get into some heavy stuff. The heavy stuff is this apparent huge change in American policy toward
Tectonic.
Israel. As Israel prepares to go into Rafah's population centers, into a place where there are a lot of Palestinian civilians, but where there are a lot of Hamas's entire military ranks left over, these brigades in Rafah. This obviously comes with a lot of risk for the IDF in their attempts to minimize civilian casualties.
It's hard enough.
Yes, people are very worried about it, as they should be in general. You know what doesn't help? The President of the United States, Joe Biden, saying he's not going to supply offensive arms, weaponry, to go into Rafah. If Israel goes into Rafah, he will not be supplying those arms. Let's see if we can play a bit of this interview from Erin Burnett's show on CNN. Out front, she had a sit down with him.
I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem. We're going to continue to make sure Israel is secure in terms of Iron Dome and their ability to respond to attacks like came out of in the Middle East recently. But it's just wrong. We're not going to supply the weapons and the artillery shells used that have been used.
Artillery shells as well.
Yeah, artillery shells.
I'm almost rendered speechless.
This
by
is
that.
wild. Let me just give you one quote from his speech on Holocaust Remembrance Day, which was the day before this news broke. And my commitment to the safety of the Jewish people the security of Israel, and its right to exist as an independent Jewish state is ironclad, even when we disagree. My administration is working around the clock to free remaining hostages, just as we have freed hostages already, and we will not rest until we bring them all home. Neither of those things is true as of the next day.
Yeah.
The next day.
He was clearly trying to thread that needle and he knew by giving, we're talking about the Holocaust speech that he gave earlier in the week, that surprisingly didn't have any mention of moral equivalence, Islamophobia. This was strictly focused
I read the whole thing.
on the
Fairly
Jewish
decent,
people.
yeah.
Our expectations are so low, but he did fine, and I thought it was okay. It's a good speech. And he must have known, and his people must have known, that would certainly upset the people on the left flank. So then what does he do? He says, look, I said this, but check out these policies, which is that for the first time ever, not really. People talk about Reagan withholding aid, military aid after Israel bombed the Osirak nuclear reactor, which was a good thing that they did, because otherwise they would have had nuclear weapons. Again, that doesn't mean that it was good then. It's not good then. It wasn't good now. It's not good now. So, but he's trying to have it both ways, and it's simply quite shocking when he talks. First of all, it's no way to conduct a foreign policy, but I cannot tell if they really think this or they're just trying to work their way around having it, on both sides. Because, again, they cannot afford to lose support on that far left. They want their traditional Democratic voters and Jewish voters at the same time. I don't think this is going to work. It comes off to me as something that is insane when he gives that response to Aaron Burnett about, we're going to help them but not help them. And if they come in and any incursion will protect that. That's no way for a country to exist by just having rockets come overhead. Oh, don't worry, we'll have this, shield. But other than that, you cannot go after them.
Well, and let's say
that's the issue.
First of all, this is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. It's just, I'm having trouble communicating how insane it is.
Yeah,
to me
too.
This is the turn he's taking.
Where do I begin?
Do I believe this has anything to do with humanitarian concerns? No. I think this is entirely a domestic political concern, because it doesn't make sense humanitarianly. Because let's say you want warfare to stop, right? Look, we'd all prefer peace to warfare, right? Now, Hamas doesn't give you that option. Hamas gives you warfare or warfare. Those are the two options. But let's say you want the operations to end and you want hostages back. The threat of overwhelming force is the only thing that gets any of those hostages back. Again,
we say this all the time. It's strength. It's not anytime they're talking about wanting to deal with the negotiating with terrorists. It's a joke. It's seen as interpreted as weakness, and rightly so.
By the way, this is a bit of the mirror problem of what you had with Trump, which was often policies were pretty decent towards somebody like Russia, where you're sort of you're putting sanctions on a bunch of people, you're taking things from them that they have in the U.S. where they shelter money. However, you have him saying dumb things about this strongman Putin in Russia, right? So the rhetoric's bad, the policy's decent. That was sort of the situation we had with Trump. In this case, I think for a long time we've had rhetoric so-so, policy pretty good. Now the worm is turning, and you have this is both bad rhetoric and bad policy at a really important time for a major ally who is in an existential fight. Yes, Israel is stronger than this force on the ground in Rafah, right? Which speaks to their great forbearance thus far, that Rafah has not already been taken, right? And to the extent to which Biden's willing to bully them behind the scenes, which is not good. But they're in a very real fight here. Hamas has said they will continue to do October 7th
forever,
over and over and over again.
It's in their charter. The annihilation of Israel is in the charter.
Again, from his speech the day before, he notes it's important that we don't forget October 7th. It's been 70 plus years since the Holocaust, and people forget. It's only been 7 months, he noted, since October 7th, and people are forgetting. He's correct about that, and he shouldn't forget about it either.
he seems to, in his mind, Biden seems to want to equate what Israel is going to do in Rafah and what they've been doing in this counter operation in Gaza to, the U.S., the bombing of Dresden or the firebombing of Tokyo. And in fact, Israel, again, goes out of its way to try to move people out of the way. It is very difficult because Hamas prefers everybody stays in place and they can hide with them. And then anybody who dies gets to be martyrs and they get to be celebrated and they get to blame Israel. The plan's working. Hamas's plan is working. They're scared. What drives me nuts is Israel's right there. Yeah. They're right there. This is the last. This is
They've
the
been there for months.
Yahya Sinwar, these guys, unless he's secretly in Qatar right now. But my understanding is they're there, and we're going to say, don't go in there and end that war and defeat Hamas. Because when you say that you don't want them to go into Rafah, what you're saying is I don't want them to go, and defeat Hamas.
Right.
And you're withholding. They make it sound like we're withholding, atom bombs, but JDAMs is what they are, right? And they're precision guided.
Precision. That's the other thing.
They're big bombs. I'm not gonna. There's no denial. It's like a 2,000-pound bomb, but they're precision guided.
But unlike all of
made by Boeing,
unlike the weaponry that flies into Israel daily,
right, which is just hitting population
going
centers
indiscriminately at civilians, these are precision.
Yeah,
it is a different moral equation. Meanwhile, in Israel, Israeli leaders reacted with defiance, this is the New York Times reporting Thursday, to President Biden's warning that the United States I think he said would, by the way, just to correct the New York Times, withhold more weapons if Israel launched a major assault on crowded parts of southern Gaza, even as concerns grew that strains with the White House could affect the country's ability to continue its war against Hamas. Mr. Biden's threat underscored the allies' widening rift over Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza, which local health authorities say has killed tens of thousands. That's the Hamas Health Authority, just FYI. It also sharpened the dilemma for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He is increasingly caught between international calls for a ceasefire and the demands of his right-wing coalition partners. Again, just a quick correction. It's not just right-wing coalition partners. It is all of Israel that has quibbles with the way Netanyahu has done this. Some of them have quibbles, by the way, with the fact that he's waited so long to go into Rafah. Right. They think that his commitment to getting the hostages should have overridden these concerns of the international
And Biden
community.
calls it the war cabinet, fine, but it's also, this is a unity government.
Right. And those right-wing coalition partners in the New York Times say who could take down his government if he doesn't move forward with a wide-scale invasion of Rafah, the southern Gaza city crammed with around 1 million Palestinians. Okay. I think what concerns me about the world stage is this just seems, let me use something from my daily life as an analogy. This is the gentle parenting of foreign policy.
Yeah.
And gentle parenting is not without its upsides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Emotional connection. There's important things going on here. Right. But if you let it go too far, the children will run over you and you will not have strength or ability to run a household anymore. No offense to those who gentle parent. Do it the right way. Just don't let them run over you. This is gentle parenting for foreign policy, and gentle parenting does not work on Hamas.
No.
Okay? You're not going to get an emotional connection with Hamas. They have different desires than the civilized world. You're not going to get the upsides. All you're getting is downsides, which is they end up running all over you and sending the signal to all the other psychopaths out there that they can also run over the United States of America.
Absolutely.
And we will abandon any ally at any moment.
I do wonder if at some point in figuring out this political calculus that Biden was like, look, the reason why we'll do this is because Israel's going to go in anyway, and they might actually succeed even without our additional aid of these JDAMs.
Right.
But at least at this point, we could tell all these people upset at us here in the United States, don't blame me. You say I stopped giving aid. Now let's have a nice, peaceful, Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Well, by the way, all of this he alleges, he's talking about the issues with who will occupy Gaza after this is done. And we've talked about that the entire time because I do think that's an issue, right? Sure. You can't just let the remnants flood back up to the border.
Right.
And there will be people who are still dedicated to the cause of October 7th in this population, Hamas and otherwise, who flow back up to the border, and then your sovereign country is in trouble again, right? So we have that issue. But he is talking in this interview about a two-state solution. He's talking about how to get a Palestinian Authority that is one you can trust. And it's like, even the left-wingiest, gentlest Israeli,
right,
the ones who do all the work with Palestinians, are like, going to be like at least a generation or two before we can do the whole two-state solution dance again.
To allow us to sort of coexist with the people who basically all they want to do is kill us. And
all they want to do is kill us. They've
spent all this time since Israel left Gaza in 2006, and they pulled out their troops. They pulled out 27-something thousand settlers from that area,
right,
and gave them this opportunity. They're getting billions of dollars in aid, and they just spent it to buy their time and have these, quote, negotiations while in reality they were planning with the help of Iran to go and commit October 7.
Yeah.
It's bizarre that Biden seems to think that the consequence of what's happening now is not related to October 7, but rather has to do with the tit for tat with Hamas.
It does seem as an attempt
There's a reason why they're going in. I mean, this is...
All of this does seem an attempt to lay upon Netanyahu and this particular form of the Israeli government somehow blame for this war to begin with, which they are not to blame for that. Like, mistakes were made before October 7th, obviously security-wise. But Hamas is to blame for it, as our moral true north, John Fetterman, continues to remind everyone. He actually said, they started this, Fetterman said yesterday. They have designed this to maximize this kind of destruction and death. They hide behind places like hospitals and civilians and schools and refugee camps. That's how it's been designed. He says the suffering is heartbreaking, but it's Hamas who created it. He's right. I wish the president would listen to him. This is just wildly irresponsible to me, and a total delusion about who you're working with on the ground and whether your left flank is going to care.
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to win over those kids on the college campuses?
Part of me thinks that by broadcasting this, right, and this interview is getting out far and wide now, that there are some who may be placated. But as we have stated on this show, until Biden says, I have now launched, nuclear weapons at, Tel Aviv.
Right.
It is.
Some of them need that. Yeah,
they will never until he agrees that Israel does not have a right to exist, which he never will do that. They will never be satisfied because that's where they are right now. They are forget about that. Forget it. They're past ceasefire. And forget about two-state solution. They want all of it, and that's where they are. So. Yeah, I don't think that's going to placate them largely. I do have concerns about John Fetterman, and post-stroke he was clearly sort of like, secret dental implant from the Mossad to make him into this Zionist tool.
That's how that went down.
The explanation.
No, I don't think he's going to win a lot of them over. He may indeed turn people off,
right? Who
he does need as part of his coalition. Now, listen. Jewish American voters are solid Democrat voters and have been a solid bloc in that way for a very long time. But the thing about putting together a coalition to win the presidency of the United States of America, particularly these days, is that you can't have even small percentages of your coalitions peel off or stay home, right? And I do think this is a big enough shift that if they keep reinforcing it, there will be some pro-Israel Jewish voters and pro-Israel wider, which, by the way, the pool of pro-Israel voters is much larger than the ones who don't think Israel should exist, just FYI.
Right, I was going to say, polling that has been done consistently shows majorities of Americans in every age group, now obviously narrow when you get to the younger people, but still within each category.
Still widely supported. Yeah.
In each category, majorities support, obviously, Israel's right to exist, Israel's right to defend itself, and, crucially, Israel's right to go into Rafah and defeat Hamas.
Yeah.
And because you really want to, not that Aaron Burnett would ask this, but this is what we wanted. We want to prevent them from going in as if Israel is intentionally killing civilians. That's the first thing, and that somehow Hamas is not to blame for that. But the second thing is, what if not? Then what is your plan to defeat Hamas and get the hostages out? And the U.S. is now finding themselves completely, rather than extricating themselves from the situation, they are now basically wanting to dictate foreign policy and military decisions of another country.
Through an interview with Aaron Burnett, by the way.
Sure.
That's quite a means.
Yeah.
Maybe call somebody up on the phone to have a discussion about this. No, it's just wild to me, and I do think it could potentially peel some people off. I was interested in, obviously this is anecdata, but there are people who are in a solidly anti-Trump position,
sure.
right? Which is where I would consider myself, like a Trump critical from day one. Never voted for the guy. I noticed Jonah Goldberg tweeting that among his anti-Trump friends, there were messages coming in that like, is this guy gonna push me far enough?
Yeah, right.
To pull the lever?
Right.
Now, like, look, do those people end up doing that in the fall?
Right.
Maybe not, but they might just vote for everyone but president, and that would matter for the Biden coalition.
I'm always amused.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, this action seems more to me than almost anything else. I guess Afghanistan would be another example. Just to be something that makes the world less safe, quite obviously.
We talk about how, well, they're not going to vote for Trump, but they might just stay home, right? Or they'll vote down ballot, but not for the main category. Sure. But it is getting to that point. I heard, for example, there was somebody on WMAL talking about the actor Michael Rappaport, who is now very hardcore, very pro-Zionist, and he was like, he was asked, is it bad enough that you might? It's not just that you would not vote for Biden or not vote at all, but perhaps even possibly entertain the crazy possibility that you might pull the lever for Donald Trump. And apparently Rappaport is like, I'm not saying I'm going to, but the thought is now crossing my mind, which it shouldn't.
Right. It's a big deal. It's a big shift. It is something that, to my mind, on the world stage, which is like, okay, let's put inflation aside and my own personal troubles. If I look at foreign policy, and I do look at foreign policy, and I do care about, many Americans, to be fair, don't really, but they do have a gut feeling that backing your allies is the correct thing to do. Particularly Israel, which is like this island in the Middle East of liberal values, where you go like, the gentle parenting is making all of us less safe than we were.
Again, and the other thing is, can you imagine another country telling you, we'll protect you from planes going into the skyscrapers, but you cannot go after Al-Qaeda, where they're training to prepare to kill you. You can't do that. You got to wait for them to come over. That's how they want to run this operation, is just wait for them. They're going to reload. They're going to, and then when they come over, then you can take action and we'll help you. But we see them over there loading, and we're not going to do anything about that.
I got to tell you, a lot of Israelis, when I traveled there, very supportive of Biden, very thankful that he spoke strongly shortly after October 7th. Woo! I got to believe there's a sense of betrayal and sadness over this particular turn there. And I guess we'll see more in polling both in Israel and here as we move forward. But gosh, I was talking to a friend that I'm actually having trouble communicating how big a deal this seems like to me. And sometimes this happened with Trump too, where he does something totally off the res, and you're like, I didn't even expect to be talking about this. And that is where I am on this.
This morning, get the paper, and obviously the Journal did not cover the interview because it was too late. But they're already reporting, which was at the time a leak that came out about, oh my gosh, they're not going to, give the JDAMs to Israel to help them go into Rafah. And I thought, it's going to be this very, sort of, intentional leak because but they're not going to openly say, well, nope, he was on and he did it. And I told this morning to Kate and told her that the United States, is withholding weapons. And she just stopped and she said, you're kidding.
Right. It seems fake.
Yeah.
It seems fake. Well, okay. Let's move to campuses where things aren't much brighter. The activists there continue to be gentle parented by the administrators who will not put standards or boundaries that are enforced on them. And here's what we get, which is a hunger strike at Princeton. Okay, so Princeton. I do love that the shot of this activist is on an ivy-covered wall. Like, that's the backdrop.
The Ivy League.
So nice to see. Let's hear from her.
By the way, and next to her compatriots
Mm-hmm.
who don't seem to be starving. Okay, I'm sorry. I said it.
Yeah, are you saying those ill-fitting khakis are not flattering to this young man?
I'm just saying.
At any rate,
I'm talking about him. Yeah.
These little activists on campus who are pro-Palestinian and often pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic, which, by the way, the president noted and did a very good job noting, although he did screw up what free speech is once again because, gosh, can we just do a 101 class on free speech? I'm actually going to play you this from the interview with Biden, not to get us off track, but just for 1 second.
First of all, there's a legitimate right to free speech and protest. There's a legitimate right to do that, and they have a right to do that. There's not a legitimate right to use hate speech. There's not a legitimate right to threaten Jewish students. There's not a legitimate right to block people access to class. That's against the law. That's against the law. And so, and if you look at the data, these demonstrations are real, but they're not nearly, I mean, look, and I made a speech on the Holocaust the other day. Mm-hmm. And I pointed out that, you know, it took 7 decades to get to the place where after the Holocaust occurred, and there's still anti-Semitism. Look what's happened. In 7 weeks, 70, I mean, what's happening? Everybody's sort of forgotten about what happened in Israel. Those 1,200 young kids murdered.
So he conflates all of those things because he doesn't understand that hate speech actually is allowed. It should be condemned, but it's allowed. The other things are against the law. Also, he sounds great. Sounds like $1 million. Okay. Anyway, moving on. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So we're back to the protester at Princeton. Let's hear a little bit from this person. I believe they're like what, a day and a half into this hunger strike at this point.
Possible. Hot and cold at the same time.
We are all immunocompromised.
Did they become immunocompromised, or were they generally immunocompromised, which is why they have masks?
I think the rule is that if you go to an Ivy League school, you are immunocompromised.
Oh,
that's the how that works. You actually have to be immunocompromised to get in. That's how it works. I love that she did the literally shaking RN meme. Like I'm literally shaking.
She used it.
They're starving themselves. This was a decision they made.
Right.
So we've gone beyond occupying a building, breaking in, demanding food and diplomas.
Right.
We're now at voluntarily stopping eating.
Yeah.
And then demanding that the administration feed you. Like what?
Right. What is
happening?
This is not St. Maximilian Kolbe in the concentration camp being like not given anything, and where he can't eat. They can go down the road to the dining hall. No. If they wanted to, they can leave and get food. But
they could literally shake their little asses down to Chipotle and get some food.
No,
literally shaking.
No, she's like really as if she's Bobby Sands. It's just the amount of privilege and entitlement and general spoiled rottenness that's just oozing out of that speech. It's just so overwhelming, and it speaks volumes because their understanding, they go to an Ivy League school, Princeton, one of the toughest to get into. They go into the school, and their belief is, I get to protest against you, and you must give me food and drink because I'm not leaving my little square.
Yeah.
Well, no one's keeping you in that little square except you.
But they're like, but there might be consequences if I leave the square.
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
There's consequences in life.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just, she should be expelled on the grounds of stupidity.
Honestly, look, this is...
And I say that as somebody who did not get into Princeton,
I didn't apply. I don't think that I would have been accepted.
She gets it to do this.
Acceptance
Literally
rate,
shaking.
The acceptance rate at Princeton is around 6%.
Yeah.
That's 2,100 out of 38,000 accepted. I'm sure, and we couldn't do better than this.
What a treat.
Many have pointed out. I think Thomas Chatterton Williams has said they select for this. This is who they're accepting on purpose.
Absolutely. The admissions office.
They should switch who they're selecting
Yeah.
and make the admissions process one where you say, Sarah Isker has said this on Twitter a couple times, make the admissions process in interviews be one where you say, when have you changed your mind about something?
Never. She said, what was the other question about being able to, how do you, realizing you're wrong about something? And
right.
I've never been wrong. My parents have never told me I've been wrong.
This is the thing. If you're selecting for students who have an impenetrable, what they feel is an unassailable, perfectly formed worldview at 17 years old, you're selecting for dummies.
Yeah.
This is dumb. Okay? If you can't imagine that there might be a different way of thinking at 17. Now, look, we're all a little hubristic at 17, right? But the point of going to college is to question those things. And they have created a situation where they only take people
Nobody's ever
this.
And none of these people are ever questioned. All throughout life, God forbid they run into somebody who they don't agree with, and then what happens? The next thing you know, you're quite literally shaking.
You
know what I would do, Mary
shaking.
Catherine?
What?
If I were a student, I would just get a big thing of Popeyes or Chick-fil-A and just eat it right in front of them.
Oh my gosh,
Maybe
yes.
let the smell waft over.
Dude, they would claim that was, in their little play acting, that would be genocide. That's genocide.
Yeah, that's the equivalent.
To stand in front of them and eat fried chicken is genocide.
Because they're going to die.
Yeah. Okay. Little update from George Washington University.
Oh, right.
The encampment was finally cleared. This is the one where they were doing fake show trials in absentia for their administrators and saying that their administrators should die.
Yeah, guillotine.
Guillotine for the
guillotine.
I was a French major. I'm just kidding.
That's very good of you. I was going to say.
I wasn't.
Guillotine.
Guillotine. For the administrators, and our friend A.G. Hamilton notes, the GWU encampment finally got cleared out last night. It wasn't because the protesters were regularly threatening people with violence, had a bunch of outside activists take over, were destroying property, attacked a police officer, or held trials promising to execute university leaders. It was only because Congress called the mayor and D.C. police chief to testify to justify their refusal to enforce the law, and they couldn't explain it anymore. So they were like, I guess you can go in there and break it up.
That's right. At first I thought, wow, this is impressive. We were complaining about how they were taking no action and they do this 3 a.m. cleanup job.
Right.
And I thought, well, they must have been planning it for some time and props to them. And then you realize that, oh, no, they were supposed to testify. And, they canceled that.
Yeah.
They postponed it, if you will, with James Comer. So really props to Comer for that. Keep in mind, by the way, while all this is happening, news broke, and I think it was in the one of the local Washington papers, said that Muriel Bowser had flown on a private jet to Augusta, Georgia to watch, all expenses paid, the Masters.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah,
for
so
her.
while this is happening, this is what she's doing.
Oh, maybe she can bring some Masters merch out to the encampment.
Sure,
it is
lovely.
Green, like Hamas. Sorry, Masters. The Masters PR team is going to come after me. Sorry, guys. Okay. My husband actually texted me a picture from local news of demonstrators being released following the encampment arrests. There were some 30 arrests. And he says, so insufferable. They're hugging like they got back from an overseas deployment to a war zone.
Yeah, and guess what? Guess what? They're going back. Why wouldn't you?
I know, of course.
There's no consequences.
I do want to play a little bit of Ben Sass, who annoyingly makes me continue to praise the University of Florida. But Ben Sass speaking at Florida, talking about how they've handled things and how it's important to have, values and understand where speech begins and illegal activity, or speech ends and illegal activity begins. And here he is saying a word. They're trying to shout him down, but he's not letting them. He's got Governor DeSantis behind him, and here he is.
Governor, welcome. Chair Hussaini, Vice Chair Patel, Chancellor Rodriguez, leaders of our legislature, members of the press, we're glad to have you on campus today. I will be brief. I have 4 simple messages. First, to the Floridians who pay our bills, the University of Florida will always uphold speech and assembly rights, and we will also always follow the law. Too much of higher education has been captured by a lot of nonsense over the course of the last weeks, and that won't happen at the University of Florida. To the law enforcement officers who have kept things peaceful, thank you. Your professionalism has been amazing. Over the course of the last 2 weeks in particular, you have been long-suffering, giving protesters the right to exercise their free speech rights, but also the opportunity to come into compliance with our time, place, and manner restrictions. Our goal has not been to arrest. It has been to help people get into compliance with the law. And what you have done in the face of being spit on, being shouted at with profanities has been amazing. The professionalism of our law enforcement is a model for lots and lots of people across the country. To the protesters, you have heard us say this again and again. You have a constitutional right to protest, and we will protect that. But anyone who crosses the line with prohibited actions will face the consequences. This is a big university where not everyone is going to agree. We have 86,000 souls on this campus, and we will treat each other with respect. Unlike many institutions across the country, I'm incredibly proud that over the course of our 21 commencements over the last 6+ days, we were able to celebrate our students and celebrate their families, which is the purpose of the commencement time. Too often in our time and place, we give the most voice to the loudest and angriest people. The University of Florida is not filled with angry people, and it's been wonderful to see a lot of moms have tears streaming down their cheeks as we were able to hold commencements over the course of the last week, and that's because of the fortitude and professionalism in particular of our law enforcement. And finally, to our Jewish students, UF is proud to be home to the most Jewish students anywhere in the country. This is the most Jewish university in the country, and it is great to be a Jewish Gator. I want all of our students to feel safe, but more than the subjective feeling, I want our students to be safe, and that is true today, and we're glad to have you, and we're excited to celebrate a big future together. Go Gators.
All right. So he has a message for the law enforcement, which he thanks, the protesters, which he says have a right to be there, but they will be stopped from interrupting other people's freedoms. And then he has a message for Jewish students who he says, we welcome you here. Apparently, University of Florida is home to the most Jewish students of any university in the U.S., and that they have a right to be safe and to feel safe there physically from their fellow students and activists who show up. So good for him. Those are all the ways that you could understand free speech if you took Sass's or my 101 class on the principles thereof.
Very good. That was good. In contrast, Northwestern University, they just had a petition that was signed by over 1,000 students, faculty, and administrators demanding that the university divest from Israel.
Good. So. By the way, Guy Benson, proud alum of Northwestern, is getting less proud of their activity by the day, just crawling out of his skin, just denouncing this day after day. They have not acquitted themselves well. Even places that know better, like University of Chicago, right? Doing bargains with people who are breaking your school rules and the law on campus. It's wild. At UNC, some of those professors have threatened to basically withhold grades unless the administration allows the students to be unsuspended to finish their finals, which I think that's clearly cause for firing if you're not doing the job of holding your students accountable. And by the way, when people say you can't hold them accountable, it's so sad, you're doing them a disservice. No, you're doing them a disservice if you never hold them accountable.
It's the other way around.
again, the far end of the unhealthy spectrum of gentle parenting for college students. This is what's happening.
We have a very
here.
serious faculty problem.
Ooh.
So,
God. All right. What else are we talking about?
MTG.
Oh, yeah. MTG tried an MTV. Our friend Marge from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, brought the motion to vacate yesterday in the House, and she failed dramatically.
Yeah.
Dramatically. It's fun. It's fun and odd to watch someone advertise how unpowerful she is. Like, look what I've done. I've united 11 of us?
Just a handful. I mean, you're going to have some Democrats peeled off. That's not going to be a surprise. And fortunately, it wasn't more than that. But they clearly knew that they did not have enough, the numbers to get Hakeem Jeffries the speakership. On the other hand, on the Republican side, it was just a very small number, including her and Thomas Massey, I believe. Does this mean that she says that symbolically it was important to send a message? Does this mean that she's going to keep on symbolically voting to
possibly
vacating the speakership?
I think
because all it takes is one. It's one of the worst rules ever introduced.
I know. I do think the resounding nature of the loss, 359 to 43, is a signal that the rest of the House is like,
don't waste
Democrats and Republicans alike, and you can call that uniparty all you want, but it might just be uniparty of people who would like to do their jobs.
Right.
Much like there's a coalition of people who believe different things on college campuses who would like to go to class and learn.
Stop wasting my time.
I think it's a signal that a lot of people are done with this stupidity. And by the way, they reflect voters' concerns.
Yeah.
A lot of voters are done with this stupidity. And perhaps the least strategic thing Kevin McCarthy ever did was allow this to be part of the rules when he took the speakership. Because, wow, it is problematic.
Yeah, right. Because you cannot contain these people. I do wonder when we talk about constituents and voters being fed up with all this, certainly in a lot of parts of the country where, if you had voted to vacate, they're going to give you a hard time. I do wonder about the folks the constituents of Northwest Georgia, where she is the congresswoman, and how they feel about it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the nature of these seats, like hers, is they're very safe, right? However, they can become unsafe.
Yeah.
Lauren Boebert won her last election by about 500 votes.
Yeah.
They can become unsafe. She had to move to a different district that she's now running in.
Yeah.
She had to run in a different district to give herself a better shot. So things can change on the ground if you're not doing the functions of government. At any rate, they failed at that. The House continues to do things.
She's very lucky that this is not like the end of Godfather 2 when Tom Hagen tells Frankie potentially, Frankie, when the plot against the emperor failed, what would they do? And what you'd have to do.
Well, and the answer is you don't have to do anything because there's no consequences.
She's not falling on her sword, that's for sure. Oh, you wanted to talk about Andrew Cuomo?
Oh yes, let's do a quick
squared. Goodness.
Yeah, two Cuomos for you guys, and I apologize for subjecting you to this. All right, real quick, just some gaslighting from former Governor Andrew Cuomo talking about COVID times and all the policies that he put in place and others put in place. This is about a minute long, but it's worth listening to because, wow, this is going to be the attempt to paint the past. So just pay attention.
I believe if government were to now say, we just made a finding that there's a new virus and everyone should do X, Y, and Z, the amount of compliance with X, Y, and Z would be much, much lower than it was at the beginning of COVID because people do not trust the government, especially on this issue, the way they did at the beginning. And that would be a complicating factor, right?
Okay, by the way, he's talking to Leanna Wen, Dr. Leanna Wen, who was a very lauded media presence from the public health community.
Former NIH?
Yes, who got so very many things
and
wrong.
Planned Parenthood, right? Wasn't it a brief stint at Planned Parenthood?
She later turned very late in the game, sort of like said, maybe we shouldn't mask toddlers so aggressively, and people got mad at her on that end.
Sure did.
She and Cuomo were hand in hand in getting so much of this wrong from the beginning. Why don't they trust you, Governor Cuomo? Who threw old people who were infected into just buildings full of other
nursing
old
homes.
people?
Yeah.
All right, let's go on.
When you have people who just don't listen, because government had no capacity to enforce any of this. You must wear a mask. And people wore masks in New York. But if they said, I'm not wearing a mask, there was nothing I could do about it. You must close your private business. I won't. Well, there was nothing I could really do about it. It was really all voluntary, and it was extraordinary when you think about it, that
is a wild-ass lie. Wild. I mean, just one in the community notes under it and people's responses, just wanted example. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said Monday he is doubling to $1,000 the maximum fine for violating the state's strict social distancing rules during the coronavirus outbreak. That's for social distancing.
Yeah.
That's not for opening a bar.
Distancing. Oh, could you remember restaurants and bars being fined? But maybe he meant not him personally. Like he wasn't going to personally.
He wasn't going to hand out those
That's
fines.
Right. Yeah. Does this count as sort of the mother of all? Now it can be told, or is it
no,
it's sort of inadvertent?
Because he's still lying.
Right. Right. Not only that, but he's also spinning it as amazing that people are so docile.
I know it's so
gross,
gross, right?
That's the great thing is that,
he's like, the problem in the future would be that people wouldn't trust us because we violated their trust in such a tremendous way, and we really liked to have our thumb on them. And wouldn't it be sad if, even though that was totally ineffective, we wouldn't have our boots on their necks once again?
I still remember, with the masking rules, I remember having to go into an ice cream parlor in town, and two girls, young girls, maybe 9, 10, walk in without masks, and it's in the summer, and the guy there saying, "Sorry, you can't come in here. You're not you have to come in with a mask." And those poor girls who really wanted ice cream, they put their shirts up like this to cover, and he's like, "Nope, doesn't count. Doesn't count." Suddenly we're all experts. It's
stupid.
It's really crazy.
And then another clip. I'm going to play 2 back-to-back clips.
Right.
One from now of Chris Cuomo, who says that he's suffering from all sorts of ailments that he's gone back and forth publicly whether he thinks it's vaccine injury or long COVID, but he does say that, hey, vaccine injury is real, much like the New York Times. Now it can be told. He's going a different direction from his brother, and I'll play this for you.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a what do they call it? Like a regular dose, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID, and they weren't saying anything. Not that they were hiding anything, but it's cheap, it's not owned by anybody, and it's used as an antimicrobial, antiviral in all of these different ways and has been for a long time.
For malaria for over almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, and my doctor, who's now my doctor, was using it during COVID on her family and on patients, and it was working for them. So they were wrong to play scared on that. Didn't know that at the time, know it now, admit it now, reporting on it now. Because I think that's the job. The idea that, well, you were a vaccine proponent. Why wouldn't I have been a vaccine proponent? Now there are questions. Oh, no, but I knew at the time. No, you didn't. What you knew was that there were people telling you to be resistant to what the government was telling you to do.
Hear me out. Is there a way that a prominent CNN journalist like Chris Cuomo could have gotten to the bottom of this during COVID? Perhaps he could have found out that all the clinicians knew this thing was safe. But let's go back to those days and hear this exchange with Don Lemon. This is how he was talking about ivermectin back then.
People who are injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh, my God. What person? You talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves. No one has to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to be shamed. They need to be called out and shamed, brother.
Well, okay. I'm calling out Chris Cuomo and shaming him.
I'd like to throw out also the brother line.
Brother.
Okay.
Brother. Also,
speaking of Dewormer.
a little related.
Okay.
I'll just give people the brief on this. We don't have to get deeply into it. In 2010, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was experiencing memory loss and mental fogginess so severe that a friend grew concerned he might have a brain tumor. Mr. Kennedy said he consulted several of the country's top neurologists, many of whom had either treated or spoken to his uncle, Senator Edward M. Kennedy, before his death the previous year of brain cancer. Several doctors noticed a dark spot on the younger Mr. Kennedy's brain scans and concluded that he had a tumor, he said in a 2012 deposition reviewed by the New York Times. Mr. Kennedy was immediately scheduled for a procedure at Duke University Medical Center by the same surgeon who had operated on his uncle, he said. While packing for the trip, he said he received a call from the doctor at New York Presbyterian Hospital who had a different opinion. Mr. Kennedy, he believed, had a dead parasite in his head. Dead worm in the brain.
That's creepy.
I'm
not a doctor, so I don't know the answer to how that happens, but I always imagine it has to do with swimming in lakes.
Oh, no.
You ever hear about that?
So much for my summer.
Yeah. Jennifer's nodding. They always hear about these things goes into the brain. It's kind of scary.
I don't wish this upon anyone, but it makes for great internet fodder because, of course, brainworms is what you call it when somebody's brain gets eaten up by partisan politics to such a degree that they can't communicate anything other than idiocy anymore. I hope he's had a full recovery from this, but we have Biden, who can't say sentences, Trump, who's hawking the only Trump-approved Bible during Holy Week and under several investigations and tweeting/truthing in all caps, and we have this guy.
Yeah.
Good job, America.
It's the best we have to offer.
This is the best we have. Okay, I'm not going to get deeply into this because we don't have time, but I'm just going to say that congratulations to the Tom Brady roast.
Yes.
Because it was wildly politically incorrect, as roasts should be. There were a lot of jokes told that I don't think we're allowed to play due to copyright issues that went after shibboleths, things you're not allowed to talk about.
Yes.
And I love it. I feel like speaking of the worm, I feel like the worm has
turned yes.
on cancel culture a bit when you can do this with some of the most famous people with the most to lose in the world in that room.
There was some good material out there.
Yeah, there was.
And I will say there was one joke apparently that was crossing the line, and that was Jeff Ross making the joke about the Patriots owner, Robert Kraft, getting a massage.
Oh.
And it was about how Tom Brady went up to him and said, I can do this, and also, would you like a massage? And then Brady apparently came up. Then I saw the video. Brady comes up to Jeff Ross and whispers, cut that S out. And then he sits back down. So it's hard to tell. Is this part of a joke? Is this part of a thing? Or was that genuine? And it was a little bit awkward, but there were a lot of fun.
So I'll read a couple because I liked these, and
please.
they're cleanish.
Yeah.
This is Kim Kardashian's joke. I think it's so great the way you're showing everyone that even after winning 7 Super Bowls, you can still have a midlife crisis. I like that one. Peyton Manning, always clean. Honestly, it is great to be here with a bunch of people sitting around talking smack about Tom Brady, or as we call it in the Manning family, Thanksgiving. And then this one is harsh but good, and it comes from Julian Edelman. Look at you handsome devil. TB12, Tampa Bay Brady, the GOAT, or as I like to call him, Leonardo DiCaprio's ex-girlfriend's ex-husband.
Yes.
And finally, we'll give one to Tom Brady himself. There's been a lot of jokes tonight, but the truth is I miss the love of my life. Football.
Poor Giselle. She was the.
I think she's doing okay.
She was. Yes. Yeah. Oh, clearly she was. It was quite the deal. I used to love reading a lot. The old New York Observer, which was on that salmon-colored newspaper broadsheet, they used to cover the Friars roasts, and it was no holds barred. I mean, uncensored in print. And one of the most notorious ones that I had read was the roast of the actor Richard Belzer.
Oh,
I can't even tell you the jokes, but Paul Schaefer was an amazing Toastmaster. And he tells a joke about Curb Your Enthusiasm's Susie Essman.
Right.
You just have to look it up. It's amazing.
Okay, listen, we're out of time, so we're going to have to skip Cheeseball Guy again.
Oh, my Cheeseball Guy.
But because I want to ask you this question real quick. Would you submit to a roast?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of scary.
It's very scary.
You do get a chance, I understand, at the end to then go after everyone who went after you. And there are people, though, I mean, I've read when reading about these roasts, some of these guys, they're in tears.
I mean, it's
like in tears, like they're crying, like and not laughing, crying, but like, please get me out of here.
no. You
know?
have to imagine the most painful things anyone could talk about in public, and they're going to do that to you.
But here's the thing. I love a good joke at my own expense.
Yeah.
And some of my best friends, the funniest ones were the ones that would be about themselves, and I'd be in tears laughing about it. If it's good, and I'll even do it for myself. If it's good, I'll tell the joke at my expense. It depends, but it depends on how cruel. Sometimes, it depends on the quality.
I think I would insist upon professionals doing this. Like, I couldn't just have my friend. If your friends do it, it's just going to be like, they're going to be trying to be funny, but they accidentally just end up being like super mean to you. And
remember the time? Yeah.
So I think it would need to be professionals, and I don't know if I would have the strength to roast someone properly, because I get very squeamish about going too far and being too mean.
Yeah.
My soul has it in it. It's in there.
Yeah.
I could write mean jokes. I could write some mean ass jokes, but would I deliver them? I think I would pull my punches.
Like Commentary does a famous annual roast, as you know. But I think that some of the roastees get treated better than others.
Yeah.
Just going to say, if they're too scared, I'd be scared. I'd be scared for me. Okay.
All right.
That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victory Nomadis. Also, I have not seen a lot of this on Elevator News, but happy Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Jewish Heritage
There we go.
Month. It's a twofer, as I told our friend Dan Halper. I cannot believe we have to share it with you people.
Sesame Street, by the way, commendable, doing Jewish American Heritage episodes during this month, which I think
Good.
Sesame Street's been can get a little woke in the
yeah,
past,
famously.
and could have just laid out this year.
Sure.
But they did not. So I appreciate that. They were doing a little Shabbat dinner with the Muppets. Very nice. I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube or Instagram. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media podcast.